Hello, everyone. Welcome into today's webinar, Architecting Outcomes with AWS AI, presented by our expert technical instructor here at New Horizons, Dean Tilton. My name is Mariela Salinas, and I will be assisting and moderating our session today. We are in Zoom for today's webinar, and we will be sharing a copy of this recording with you via email after the session. We do encourage participation throughout the session, so please use the chat or that Q&A option for our short Q&A after the presentation. Educate 360 is so excited to present this webinar today. I will now hand it over to you, Dean.
Great. Thank you, Mariella. Well, what I'd like to do here, I have some topics I'll be going over related to this webinar, and I have them on a separate monitor. So you're going to see me looking over to one side. Let me go ahead and share that with you all as we go through the material here. There we go. That should be showing up now. Are architecting outcomes with AWS AI. So first of all, just so we're all on the same foundation, AI, or artificial intelligence, refers to technology that mimics human intelligence. And they're pointing out here its adoption momentum is real, with some 72 organizations using generative AI in at least one business function last year. 50% of the organizations transitioned generative AI point of concepts to production in 2024, and they're beginning to realize its benefits financially, as well as functionally, with 40% of organizations already achieving expected productivity and efficiency benefits. Now, they're mentioning here specifically generative AI. So under the broad umbrella of artificial intelligence, you have what's referred to as machine learning, and a subset of that, um, you'll have deep learning and then generative AI. And generative AI is about generating new content, hence the name generative. And it was all the buzzword. I got to attend a session last year for AWS trainers, and it was the buzzword for that event, and at the beginning of this year as well. Now, as we're going to see here in the next slide, along with that, and this has generated a lot of interest here, is agentic AI, or using agents. Now, to point out the other two items here, you can see that a surprising number of organizations have already appointed a chief AI officer, with budgets being redirected towards AI. And as mentioned there, agentic AI, again, generating a lot of interest to allow us to automate our processes instead of being reactive, to be proactive. And they can make decisions to assist us in providing workflow solutions. They point out here generative AI return on investments. Three-fourths of organizations note generative AI initiatives meeting or exceeding their return on investment expectations, as well as with, and again, this is a bit newer. In fact, it's, like I said, generating a lot of interest, agentic AI, with here increased customer service issue resolution by 14% an hour, time spent handling issues reduced by 9%. And although you can see only 1% last year, they're expecting it to rise to 33% as far as its adoption. And part of the reason that can happen is because of the relative ease with which we can generate these solutions, which I'll like to show you here in just a moment. Before I do, they point out here the AI implementation journey. First of all, describing how can we use AI, various use cases for AI, and then how can we use it in our particular environment. to provide a solution. I have a relative who is in the healthcare space, and they spend a fair amount of time transcribing the patient and doctor's visitation to have it um, written down so it's documented. Well, AWS has something called Health Scribe, which can automate to a very large degree that whole process to significantly reduce the amount of time and effort that's involved, as a specific example. Then choosing the appropriate model. There are a large number of models that are available. Um, you can actually see an example of that here. Let me just connect up to here. This is my account here. I'm just going to here pull this up. And this is with Amazon Bedrock. And you can see they currently have over 240 different models. Now, some are optimized for working with text, others for images, other different scenarios, their uses. You can see a few there. Also, a big concern for a lot of organizations is security. They may have to adhere to certain compliance requirements. Let's say, for example, if you're in with the federal government, with FedRAMP, or you're a client of the Department of Defense, there are certain uh, specifications you have to adhere to before you can submit and secure a contract, or perhaps some other legal considerations. By the way, you might want to check out AWS artifacts to show where AWS is compliant across a variety of fields, including like HIPAA, the CMMC, the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, and others. Now, responsible AI considerations for designing, developing, and deploying ethical, safe, unbiased AI solutions, and then a proof of value. Can we, is it worth the effort, the time, the energy, the resources to move forward? That's that decision point. And then developing the solution, uh, deploying the solution, observing it, improving to provide that business value. There are various challenges. Providing a tangible value. One example that comes to mind for me is with my manager who uses AI. He says for him, he saves about 8 hours a week using AI. Part of that is with generating emails. Now, with a lot of these, you still want to vet the responses that you're getting. Some of you may be aware of um, a very legitimate concern called hallucinations, where we get the wrong answer. So we would want to, and they're attempting to improve these all the time, but understandably, there are some various concerns. And this is getting into the topic of risk, which is equal to your threats plus vulnerabilities. Threats attempt to exploit the weaknesses of those vulnerabilities. Security is all about managing risk. Um, we may be transferring the risk, in this case, we get to AWS, but um, we can't assume, of course, we don't, that we'll always be able to access it. Uh, the majority of incidences are due to the client, the customer, the consumer, but there are some cases where it's the cloud service provider. And I'm not just picking on AWS, it's with Azure as well. Those are the two leading cloud service providers. So there's pros and cons. The challenges related to the technology, learning the technology, implementing the technology, the people. um, their tolerance for change. A lot of us, we find ourselves getting somewhat settled, and occupied. It's like, it's not broken. Why are you trying to fix it? Okay. But for the sake of improving, good, better, best, never let it rest till the good is better and the better best. We're always seeking to improve. Um, there's maybe you've heard of it called Kaizen. We're making these small incremental improvements versus waiting several months or years before the next version of the operating system or the application. That's very much evident with cloud computing and challenges related to the processes that we are involved in, which will bring us to the topic of governance here in a few slides. So the implementation, um, the remaining slides fall into these three categories. AI implementation made better and easier by giving us the freedom to invent. And I was just showing you there a wide selection of models that we can pick from. Number two, providing AI you can trust through security. We'll address a few items there. And number three, helping you maximize value for cost optimization. So the first of those three right here, freedom to invent. Some specifics here. They mentioned by 2028, um, they say that the more than 2 dozen generative AI models will be implemented from more than three major vendors um, on average. Now, again, there are lots and lots to choose from here. Over 240. Again, some are optimized for one type of content, others for a different type of content. Here they cite 80% of companies are revising their data strategies to support AI initiatives, emphasizing data quality improvements as another method or means. Maybe you've heard of, well, it was called Code Whisperer. They rebranded it. I think it's Amazon Q Developer, which can significantly cut down on the amount of time it takes for programmers, developers to create their code. Again, though, we still want to vet those responses. But again, as an additional tool, it can also help with debugging for troubleshooting and finding and fixing errors. 46% of organizations cite that data governance is a key criteria for generative AI deployment. So governance is kind of an umbrella term. It acts like it provides guidance for how we're to use our solution. Basically, an organization has made a financial investment. In this case, for cloud computing with generative AI or some other type of AI solution in AWS, and they'd like a say in how it's being implemented. That's governance, about people using a technology according to certain processes that conform to that organization's policies. Here, the evolution into agentic AI. And again, this is um, creating a lot of interest. Um, you can see as they're moving from the left to the right. On the left-hand side, more human oversight, but they're directing it to less human oversight. So some solutions that have been helping us, generative AI assistance following a set of rules and automating repetitive tasks. Generative AI agents says achieves a single goal, addressing a broader range of tasks, automating our workflows, and the use of agents with AI agents or agentic AI systems, fully autonomous. They can incorporate multiple agent systems, mimic human logic and reasoning. Here in that same site, going down a little further, I'm on Amazon Bedrock with the model catalog, but a little further down, we have here our agents, where we can select a foundation model and add action groups. If I go here and say create agent, It allows me to define a name, description, and whether to enable multiple agent collaboration. Clicking on here, create allows me to either manually or with an assistant build a solution, which I can on the right-hand side test that solution. Businesses, or maybe we can speak, excuse me, more generically of organizations because um, business is very specific. Organization is a broader term, which could encompass your nonprofits, your governments, the um, and not just the for-profit. They're creating value with these agents to help improve workplace productivity. I bring agility and scale to business processes, accelerate research and innovation, enhance quality and resilience. Again, there's a lot of potential benefits for its use. Now, again, understandably, a concern with security. Uh, AWS's motto is security is job zero, which means security permeates and percolates to everything that AWS does. Now, does that still mean I can entrust my data to them? Well, I can't answer that question. Um, uh, and maybe some of it, yes, but no. It really just depends upon how risk averse an organization is, the sensitivity of the data. Um, Here they mention 66% of executives identify data privacy and security as one of their top AI risks to navigate. Um, with security, they have something called the security triad, which is built upon confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality, basically, who's allowed to read it. Integrity, has it been modified? And availability. Now, I mentioned earlier, most of the issues have been through either like a misconfiguration or lack of configuration on the part of the customer, the client, but every now and then it is the cloud service provider. Mainly it seems through availability. Certain services are down, we can't gain access into them at that time. And so that does affect our solutions. So it's a very valid concern. In fact, let me just bring it up here. There's something known as the AWS well-architected framework, and it'll provide guidance. One of the six pillars is on security, and they've got this nice tool here that allows you, instead of having to read through the PDFs, it can just guide you through a list of questions. Um, You can see here those six pillars. Originally there was four. They've added two more, but security is one of them. And so based upon your responses to these questions, they can provide recommendations for a secure cloud computing solution. That's an AWS well-architected tool. So you basically just read through the questions and respond. Am I separating my workloads using accounts? Am I securing that root user? Very powerful account, most powerful. A few actions you can only perform as the root user. Here, in implementing responsible AI practices, 77% of executives believe that the true benefits of AI will only be possible and built on a foundation of trust. That's true. Can I entrust my data to this third party? And again, maybe some of it yes, some of it no. Maximizing value with AI, including starting with the problem, not the solution. So they identify here a few points, including the pressure points, the pain points in customer experience or operations, focusing on measurable business outcomes and ensure alignment with organizational strategy. We found out in IT a long time ago. We're more likely to have success if we can tie our IT solutions to the mission of the organization. AI can create significant value to the organization internally with operational efficiency and employee productivity. I mentioned the benefits that it's being realized by my manager. Um, Externally by reimagination of customer and user experiences um, that it can provide. I think many of us are aware of the of those benefits, including being able to create a chat bot without having to know any kind of programming. Again, that's with Amazon Q, allow you to do that. Internally, some of those success stories at Amazon, some of their experiences include, you can see the one there on the left-hand side, Amazon Rufus, uh, and other AI solutions, Amazon Ads, Amazon Pharmacy, Amelia for sales. With these solutions, they can provide, for example, they can glean through the responses, the surveys, instead of having to read hundreds or thousands of customer reviews, it can synthesize and summarize that information, allowing us to focus on uh, the results that are of interest to us. Now, in taking the next step, they mention here some solutions I pointed out here or just mentioned. Uh, Amazon Q Developer, which can be integrated with developers' IDEs, integrated development environments, to generate code to assist in identifying issues with the code. And Amazon Q Business, that's the one that can, among other things, create those chatbots. Um, Building our solutions with Amazon Bedrock and Amazon SageMaker AI. So whereas these are basically, in a sense, created for you to a large degree, these would give you much more flexibility, but there is definitely more of a learning curve related to it. Or specialized expertise through AWS's partner network and their innovation center with generative AI. So a look at various outcomes here related to working with AWS AI, um, moving from a point of concept to providing business value. Do want to thank you all for joining me for our brief session here, just a broad overview of looking at some of these outcomes and its implementation, along with, again, agentic AI generating a lot of interest. Um, and Just want to hear in the last few minutes here before we close our session, if you did have a question, feel free to post it there. And for those who are taking off, I do want to thank you for joining us for this particular time. Um, and getting some here. Okay, so here from Nikki, obviously today's call is focused on AWS cloud computing, correct? Um, is the purpose to gear folks as to why AWS would be the best solution? If so, how does it compare to other options? So really, the emphasis here is just to point out the available solutions. I also do work with Azure. They each have their pros. Actually, they're very similar. They seem to kind of piggyback off of one another. Um, there's not yet a substantial difference. They employ a lot of the same technologies, the same models that are being used. Part of it would be um, based upon your comfort level. There is a little bit of learning curve going from one to the other. So for example, with AWS, they call them EC2 instances. In Azure, they're called virtual machines. Fundamentally, they're the same, uh, essentially, but there's some different just terminologies that they use. So it's not so much here to say, hey, this is the best solution. There's pros and cons for I'm really just focusing here on AWS, but there are pros and cons for other vendors. And a lot of it to me has to do with your comfort level. What's so powerful about your various cloud solution providers is their ability to integrate the different services together. It's like S3 is great, yeah, for storage, but it integrates with so many other services to allow us to create brand new solutions. So I know that's not a definitive answer there, Nikki, but um, to me, a big part of it would be if whichever cloud service provider you're using, they would, well, I shouldn't say whichever, but the major players, um, they provide AI solutions which can be integrated with their others. So if you're already using, let's say, some other one besides AWS, okay, I don't know if I'm supposed to be saying this here, but that might be the direction to go. A lot of organizations are multi-cloud though. And so there is a certain degree of compatibility between them. All right, very good. Thank you. Well, Marielle, I'll turn it back over to you. And again, I just want to say thank you all for spending this time with me here to get just a broad overview related to these outcomes related to architecting outcomes for AWS's AI.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dean. This was a lot of really amazing insights. So, I did want to call attention to our audience if they needed any additional information on this topic. They could absolutely visit us at newhorizons.com or click on the link I shared in the chat to learn a little bit more about Gen AI Essentials on AWS. Thank you all so much for your engagement and for your awesome and thoughtful questions. And if you missed out on any part of the session, please do not be afraid to take a peek at that recording we will send you in an email after the webinar. Alrighty, everyone, I think that will do it for us today. So thanks again, Dean, for your amazing expertise, and hope you all have a fantastic rest of your week. Alrighty, everyone, have a great rest of your day.